So
process their
appropriations
applications.
is canceled this afternoon?
Yes.
Yes, so we're live. Is it February 23rd?
There's so much.
Senate Economic Development, 24th, February 24th, Economic Development. We are doing bill introductions of some of the bills we have on the wall to see if there's enough momentum and a glide path to advance any of them. And we have Senator Lyons in the witness chair. We're very grateful because after Senator Lyons, we have 2 members of her committee in succession. So we're kind of hollowing out health and welfare
I need
this
to
morning.
before you go. Bought a bill. It's dependent on what you're doing in Connecticut. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah. Thank you. Which bill would you like?
Let's start numerically. Let's do S19 and then S49.
Okay. Glad to do it. For the record, Senator Ginny Lyons. And I'm here talking about S19, which is a bill related to purchase, use, and possession issues around tobacco products. So in the past, this bill has been embedded in the flavors ban and tobacco bill that we currently are working on in our committee. So I see it as a companion bill with that. You know, currently, if a minor, someone under the age of 21 holds tobacco or tobacco products or purchases them, they can be liable for a traffic type violation, traffic ticket. It's like $25. And if they use a false ID to purchase, they get a fine of $50. So this bill removes the penalties for their purchase and use or possession of those products. And so because I think that really the responsibility should lie with the retail establishment that's selling the product. So what, you know, why would we do this? It's a value-based judgment. But, you know, I can think of kids thinking that smoking behind the barn is kind of a neat, exciting experience. And so by taking the fine away from it, it doesn't allow for that. It's no longer such an exciting event. But also then to hold the adults accountable who are selling the product to the kids. So for me, you know, think about schools and how we apply in other areas. We apply what's known as restorative justice. I see this as part of that continuum. That's it for the bill. So you can go through the bill and you'll see places where we have struck the fines and the penalties for purchasing or using. And then there are a couple places where we've added in some language. One of the things I think that's really important is to include the Substance Misuse Prevention Oversight and Advisory Council in the reporting process. They're doing a lot of work on all substances, including nicotine, others. So
Great.
that's it. That's the bill.
Yeah. Any questions? And I know we have Tina here. I always get confused. American Cancer Society.
Heart.
Okay. Sorry.
She's the red girl. She's
American
not wearing red
Heart
today.
No, but it's the same colors come to mind for me.
The Heart Association.
American Heart Association. And there's not great evidence that this has been either a deterrent or sort of evenly applied or anything has reduced tobacco use.
I was going to say one thing about that. I think
Yeah.
during the pandemic, we've seen increased utilization of a lot of these products.
Mhm.
And we've lost ground in our prevention efforts
Mhm.
for a number of reasons. And that's one of the things that we'll be looking at in our committee.
Right. So this
has
paired with
not been, as you
prevention.
said, this hasn't
Exactly.
been a deterrent. That's a very good point.
It's not raised just money that we're using for youth outreach
I
or
think we
prevention.
can find out about that.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think there've been a lot of tickets written.
Right.
If you asked a kid what it was.
Senator Cummings.
Okay. The problem I have is that what we're saying to this child who is breaking the law, that there are no negative consequences if you break the law. That's the other side of, there's no thrill of trying to break the law. And the adult that we want to come down on is frequently a 17 or 18-year-old clerk in a store.
But, and that's, you're right, and so that's why one of my comments was that the penalty should rest with with the retail sales.
Yes, the
Store.
message we're sending to the minor is that you can break the law without consequence.
Do we have anything similar for alcohol?
Yeah, there's-
That's, it's a good question.
It's a question you have to answer. I'm introducing this
Yes.
as an opportunity. for
I
that.
think furnishing alcohol to a minor, et cetera, but I think the minor themselves does not face a financial.
there's some penalty.
We can ask DLL to comment on this whole bill.
We did have some
Break
kids
the
from
law,
the
there should be
committee.
a penalty. There's no penalty, don't make it the law.
Oh, it's a very good point.
The longer it takes to learn that, the worse the consequences.
Whatever you do with the bill, it's an introduction, and
Mhm.
it's an
Right.
opportunity for looking
Yeah.
at all sides of it.
So I think so far the questions you've raised will be technically answered by DLL because they could say how often they're applying this penalty, and what other penalties like this exist. Any other questions about the bill? Tina, anything you wanted to add while we have you here?
Yes, thank you. I think one of the great witnesses you all could consider is yesterday, there was a wonderful witness too from CDU, the Student Assistance Program Director, and a student who talked about how the kids are having such trouble quitting vaping devices, and that eliminating penalties like this would bring the kids forward because they are finding it's easier to continue vaping because they don't want the hassle or the fear of coming forward to get help.
So,
That's Tina, but the DLL is the, oh, Tina Zook is,
The American Heart Association.
oh,
My
like,
apologies.
yeah.
so I'm just gonna ask if I can introduce the other bill, because I want to.
Yes. That's 49.
That's
Yeah.
49. Right, we know about the proliferation of businesses and opportunities for folks to identify their full genome, look at their genetic makeup, whether it's chromosomal or whether it's gene-based or both. And so there are a number of companies that have put in place some principles and guidelines for the protection of the customer. So that if you are like Ancestry, 23andMe and others, if you're sending your DNA in, then if it's going to be shared, you must allow for that to happen. So this bill really looks at the informed consent opportunities that exist for people to share or not to share their genetic information when they send in their little swab, their piece of themselves. So the direct-to-consumer genetic information is proliferating across the country, and so are the companies that are doing this. And this allows for people to share or not share. A number of states have already done this. I think you'll hear from the Coalition for Genetic Data Protection that Arizona, California, Kentucky, Maryland, Utah, Wyoming have all put this informed consent legislation in place. There is, knowing that it could be very expressive of potentially who you are, and it could also be used or misappropriated by people out in the community, a number of different groups, without naming any one. The one piece of the bill I think that needs some work is on the enforcement piece. And right now it includes a private right of action.
So that's page 6, line 11.
Yeah.
It's very innocuous looking language.
It
Sure.
is, but you know, there are so many businesses that are opening up that
Mhm.
how would you know which business is responsible for some, either letting the information go out, if you had an informed consent? And keeping track of all that would be unbelievable.
Mhm.
So I would recommend just putting it through the AG's office and have that enforcement take place. But that's something you're gonna have to look at again. I'm just bringing that up as an issue that was raised to my attention by folks who have been involved with this for a long period of time.
Right, and there's a larger data privacy bill going through the House, but there's a desire to keep this separate
Yeah,
because that is a kind of
that might capture,
bigger.
yeah. So that's the bill.
Yeah.
It's an exciting bill, and what I think is most exciting about it is that it's coming to us from the industry itself, where they have seen the importance of protecting their customers.
Mhm.
I was gonna say clients and patients, and then customers.
Right,
Yeah, that's it.
great, yeah, Senator Harrison.
I appreciate this and I thank you for bringing it forward. I think it's really important.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, and you have it in your committee, and I really hope, you know, you at least learn more about it from the industry that has worked so hard on it.
Yeah, and I'll just say this for the record, we haven't seen a lot of opposition to bills like this in other states is what it sounds like, and there's not a lot of
yeah, I don't
opposition that's
think you
forming
will.
now against this. Yeah.
Might be helpful if the federal government did this.
We say that a lot in this building.
Yeah.
Question? Yeah, any more questions?
Okay.
Thank you, Senator Lyons. We'll stay in touch about what we're taking up and witness ideas that you have. And we appreciate you letting your other committee members go throughout the morning.
Oh, they're gonna be in there. This is good.
Yes, Senators
Okay.
Bullock and Hardy both have, they're the other people with bills.
Yeah. All right, great. Thank you.
Thank
And,
you.
We'll stay connected as.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
take care.
Is there anything you wanted to add, representing the coalition?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Bridget Morris with the Coalition for Genetic Data Protection. And I would just say I'm really grateful for the opportunity to have Bill heard in the committee, and thank you for your time. And certainly can line up whichever witnesses you'd like to talk in more detail about this and the history of this bill that's passed in other states. So thank you.
I see two members of the committee who are on the bill, so I have a sense that there may be interest in moving forward with it. I don't know, Senator Harrison, if there's, I was just gonna say, let's get one more witness who might be the leader of that coalition. Who's
Happy to.
maybe able to bring them on.
And address the enforcement,
yeah.
right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so you'll tell Scott
Yes,
about
definitely.
that
Thank you,
person.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Oh, great. Okay, so we're doing it like quick as they can get going. On S19, while Senator Hardy's coming down, this is the eliminating the penalty for use and possession of tobacco. Is there, so it sounds like we're gonna have at least one more witness DLL to pursue this a little further and get Senator Cummings' questions answered. And then we can decide from there if we want to take it up. Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
Okay. So Senator Hardy's bill. Hi, Senator Hardy.
Morning. I haven't been in here yet. Oh, these paintings are lovely.
Yes,
but
your constituent.
Yeah, they brighten this room up a lot.
Yes, yes.
So nice.
We are happy.
After town meeting week, we'll get more of the hanging apparatus so that they
So
Yeah,
they aren't so
together.
tiny.
they're very lovely.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone.
Good
Morning.
morning. So you have two bills.
Yeah.
We want to have an instruction for S23.
Oh, I should put a map. You were all wearing masks.
Well,
Yeah.
you've heard what our Senate challenges.
I have heard rumors of the Summit challenges, but I have not heard the details.
Well,
of that.
transportation and approach are canceled.
Oh, shoot. a whole
And
committee?
Yeah, if you would like a mask, sometimes, I mean, we're all wearing masks, so if it's easier to speak without a mask,
I will forego the mask.
and I just
but-
tested negative.
So why is
Makes
the folks canceled?
it choose.
Jane, Andy, Dick.
Should
And I
we
don't
talk,
know.
not talk about that?
Yeah, not on Zoom,
Jane
you
is
guys.
feeling
Yeah.
So Senator Hardy.
Hi, good morning,
Hi, good
Senator
morning.
Ramsdale.
So let's start with S23, if you
Okay.
don't mind, an act relating to prohibiting certain forms of discrimination. We have a larger workplace discrimination bill, and I think if there's interest, a lot of these could fold into that.
Yeah, yeah. So this bill is a bill I introduced, that was introduced 2 years ago and was sent to judiciary and didn't get taken up. But it is based on a national sort of movement to pass laws discriminating, prohibiting discrimination based on hairstyle, and it's known as the Crown Act. And I think I'm not sure how many states have done it at this point. Every year there's a few more that do it. A couple of years ago, a few constituents of mine asked me to introduce this in Vermont because they have experienced discrimination based on hair. It is often Black women who experience this type of discrimination, but it's not solely Black women and Black girls. So in schools, so this would include prohibiting discrimination in housing, employment, and education. So often there are instances, for example, recently there were instances of discrimination and racism with high school sports. And there were some Black girls, I think it was the South Burlington basketball team, who were told they couldn't play unless they changed their hairstyle. So that's the kind of thing, like, often braids or natural hair or I cannot speak to it directly, but so I don't want to say something that would be wrong or offensive, but often different types of hairstyles are considered, inappropriate by some people. And then the girls or the women are discriminated against. It happens at work, at school, and probably less so, but in some cases in housing. I also added to this bill the prohibition of discrimination based on weight. And that was a different constituent of mine reached out to me to talk to me about the discrimination that people who are larger weights are often discriminated in housing and employment and education as well. So I combined the two in this bill. And recently Senator Ram Hinsdale and I were contacted through the pro tem of these professors who are experts in what is called fat studies, and they would love to testify on the bill and talk to you about the sort of challenges for people who are larger and the discrimination they face. So that is basically, and I'm happy to send you information on the Crown Act, and I'm sure there are some national people who would love to testify. I think it would also be really great to get the basketball girls in to talk to you, depending on your time, but that's the
Just the people that told them too.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are certain safety I often wonder how those pro football guys get with the curls or the ponytails hanging out the back, because that's something that can be grabbed or caught. I mean, there are some safety concerns there. You frequently have to put nets or whatever your hair is or tie it back. So it's finding that balance, but I'd like to know why they were told that the hair was.
Yeah, it was certainly, I think it sounded like to me that they were targeted. And then there are, I'm completely blanking on her name, but you might remember the former newscaster.
Stephen McKenna.
Yes, who also faced discrimination for her hair at work. So there are examples, and certainly.
She was on Channel 3, and now she's on CNN, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maiden.
Exactly. So that's that bill, and it certainly could be folded into other things if you all decide to move forward with it.
It's real, sorry, go ahead.
No, and just to say that the national movement for the Crown Act, if you Google Crown Act, you will find a lot of information. They're really good at sort of explaining their case through social media and regular media. And I'm sure that there are national people who would love to come.
Right.
If you have the time.
Was Damien your drafter?
Damien was the drafter, and he, yeah, so, and I can send you, well, I think I've sent it to you, Senator Ron Hinsdale, information about the Crown Act, and also a really excellent article. I think it was in the New York Times about the weight discrimination that really explains it. And there's a lot, often very links between the two, with weight and hair. And there are 2 states currently that prohibit discrimination based on weight. They're Michigan and Washington, I believe. And then I think there are at least, 17 is the number I'm thinking in my head about the Crown Act, but I'm not positive.
It's just so interesting that the last page, race is now defined to include traits associated or perceived to be associated with race, including hair type, texture, and styles, braids, locks, twists, etc.
Yeah,
It was a very interesting change. Just sort of.
yeah, and I mean, certainly ask Damien about that, but I think he looked at the laws in other states,
Yeah.
and connecting the hairstyle to race
Right.
was the best way to prohibit discrimination, so that it's not necessarily a new category. It's expanding the category of racial
In the
racial
definition.
discrimination. Yeah, in the definition, but he can speak to that, I think, but he, I believe, got that from the laws in other states.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Any other questions about S23?
So-
Senator Clark.
The Crown Act, while it's being broadly looked at and reviewed,
Mhm.
it isn't yet a uniform bill. It's not it's just, there's a template or there's something that's sort of uniformly being reviewed, but it's not a uniform bill.
there is a template that I think, like model legislation.
Right, that's what I meant.
Yeah, that states are using, and I believe Damien looked at that and looked at what was enacted in other states. The states that have, most of the states that have enacted it have a larger Black population than we do, but it doesn't mean that discrimination doesn't happen here.
And Dove has a whole campaign
Yes,
about
they-
professionalism of Black
I
hair.
have a sweatshirt and buttons if you all want them.
Okay.
And yeah, they sent me a whole package. And the last bill did not include education. I added
Yeah.
education to the bill
Yeah.
this time because it happens so frequently, or perhaps more frequently in schools. So that's why that was added, even though that's slightly out of your purview, but
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll mention to Senator Campbell.
yeah. All right, so that,
And Senator Gulick is on the bill, so maybe she could.
yeah.
We're talking about the Crown Act and that there's an education component to it. If we can take it up, we'll just want to be in touch with Senate Education. S30, unless people have more questions.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. S30 is the sister state bill. As you might know, Vermont has a sister state program. It was, I believe, the first sister state relationship was created by Governor Cunin in the 1980s, and it was with a Russian province and city in Russia. And she did it by executive order. And the drafter of the bill, who I think it's David, I can't remember who drafted this now, too many bills.
Right.
Has a copy of that executive order, can find it for you. And each
It was
governor.
called Petrus Vuds, and it was Oliver went twice. It was because the law school had a very robust relationship with the law
Where
school
is it,
in
Corellia?
Petrus Vuds. It's northeast of St. Petersburg.
Yeah, I think that's Corellia. My daughter.
Yeah, in Karelia.
In Corellia.
But and Petrus Vuds, because where they went. And you recognize the famous log log chapels and log churches that they, I'll bring you in an egg from there. But anyway, it was a
Well,
very robust
Yeah,
relationship with Corelia.
yeah, so, and then there have been various other sister state relationships that have all been created by executive order throughout the years. We currently have a sister state relationship with the Tottori province in Japan. And that was created by Governor Scott. And that also is a very robust relationship. In fact, full disclosure, my daughter was going to go on a music exchange there in April 2020. That did not happen, but there are a lot of international exchanges, and they're often art or economic or food, lots of different exchanges. And the reason that we have a sister state relationship with them in part is because they are kind of like the Vermont of Japan. They're the smallest province. They're very rural. They're aging. They have a lot of farms. It's very similar to, they face a lot of similar issues that Vermont does. So a constituent reached out to me to ask if we could, if I would introduce this bill in large part so that there would be an ongoing sister state program that wouldn't depend on the changes of administration, so that it would be statutory instead of by executive order, and that there would be basically criteria for sister state relationships that would, goals and criteria for what they were, why they were developed and what they should be about, and then criteria for when they should be ended. If something happens, whether it's now, some kind of crisis like COVID or a war, right now with what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, that kind of thing, so that there would be ways to end them. But also goals so they're not just here to look nice, but that they're actually benefiting both Vermont and the sister states. So this bill includes some of those goals. It creates a sort of sister state program and committee, and there already is in the Agency of Commerce, and I think this is why you all got the bill. Agency of Commerce works on the current sister state relationship. There is a staff member there whose name I'm forgetting, who you should probably have in to talk with you, who sort of oversees the sister state program.
And
among
you talked
many
to them
other
about the
things.
bill.
The drafter reached out to them about it. I didn't talk to them directly, but so it does exist already, but this would create a committee and also saying that the agency could contract with an outside entity, and then program requirements about how it's supposed to work, that there shouldn't be more than 5 at a time, that there are requirements for what they're supposed to do. And a lot of this was me just trying to come up with a framework for you to build on.
Right.
So my constituent, Peter Lynch, I put him in touch with the chair, and I know he would love to come in. He's worked directly with the Japanese sister state program. He's done musical, artistic, economic, etc. Exchanges with them, and he can speak to this a lot more in depth. And the Japanese delegation that runs the sister state program on their side would love to testify. I think they're creating a video for you. They are so eager, and I think it would be really fun if you have the time to hear from them. And then actually Patricia Preston, who works at the
Vermont Council on World Affairs.
Thank you. She has also been involved in the sister state program, and I think she would be interesting to hear from about it as well.
Did the Humanities Council weigh in or?
No,
Okay.
so to be honest, I put them in because into the committee, because I was trying to think of a counterbalance to having it be all economic, wanting to have some kind of arts representation. So You know, I think it's really important that it be multifaceted and not just an economic program. So the arts exchange, the food exchange, the other
The education.
educational
I mean, the law school, we
exchanges.
should have somebody from the law school to talk about how it benefited. It was cut off because of, I believe this program was ended by resolution after Ukraine, after the launch of Ukraine. I think it was one of the first actions we took.
The Russian, though that one ended a long time ago.
Are you
Yeah,
sure?
it's not an.
It ended over an issue though. It ended,
It might have
and I
ended over
believe
an issue,
Ginny-
but it's not in existence anymore. The one that we have
I
right now
know.
is the Japanese one.
but the people who benefited from the Karelian one can talk to all the benefits
Sure.
from the law school. That would be great.
And yeah, educational institutions, UVM, Middlebury College, a lot of them in Norwich. So the other thing, the other entity that you may want to have in is the adjutant general.
I was thinking that.
Yeah,
Oh,
they have international
Right.
relationships, and that they could be sort of part of a sister state relationship
Right.
too.
It could formalize their exchange.
Yeah, and then obviously our relationship with Quebec,
Right.
which could be formalized into a sister state relationship.
I'm sure they would love that. They're always reaching out on those kinds of things.
Yeah, and it's just kind of a nice thing to, I just kind of love the concept of a sister state just in general, and then it gives you kind of a feeling of, you know, we're not this tiny little dot in the world, we're part of a broader international community, and that there are other places that are similar to Vermont in the world. And that they benefit like all Vermonters across the spectrum, because there's so many ways to create international relationships. Yeah, I was just thinking one other thing, now I can't remember it, but, and language,
Yeah,
language,
right.
building and sports,
Mhm.
yes, yeah, and I think I mentioned sports in here
Because
as
it's
well.
really.
Yeah, so, I hope that you'll move both of these forward, obviously. And if there's anything I can do to be helpful, I'm at your disposal. And yeah, thank you so much for taking these up and considering them, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
All of you. If there are any questions?
Yes, Senator Hanson.
Just a question on the sister state, the effective date is it's in 2024. Is that intentional?
So the part of it was that there needed to be sort of an implementation phase. And so we thought that, you know, having it take effect right on 2023 would be really hard. But yeah, and you know, there's a lot in here that you all can, you know, figure out. I was just trying to get a sort of structure for you to use as a basis. So yeah, the Totori people will tell you that I think this summer is the 10-year anniversary of that sister state relation, or maybe the 5-year. There's some anniversary this summer. So they would love for this to be passed and up and running by the time they have their anniversary, so that they can, you know, be the first official new whatever.
Right.
You can ask them about that, but I don't know if that's possible. So I'll just leave that for you to figure out.
Yeah,
sounds
Yeah,
great.
it was
Thank you.
mostly just like trying to have a transition period to create a new committee and structure.
So if it were earlier, it wouldn't be a problem.
What I defer to all of you now, that's your job to figure out the details. But I, you know, I'm happy to be involved as much as you want me to be.
When I went to Japan, I learned that one of their favorite things to eat is something called Vermont curry. And it's apple and maple flavored. And we don't even know about it in Vermont. I mean, they use some kind of flavoring that probably only has a tangential relationship to us, but they all eat Vermont curry. It's like a really special type of curry there. So,
That is super cool.
yeah.
Yeah, so things like that. Like,
Oh, yeah, and-
that's so cool.
Yeah.
I went to Russia years ago with a group of city managers, and it was an exchange of ideas, and we learned as much from them as they learned from us. It's
Yeah.
really, really helpful to get out of where you are
Right.
and see how other folks do things. Because it
Yeah.
can actually be very beneficial.
One of the most
Absolutely.
interesting things that I did was participate in this an exchange program that brought a number of people from the US to meet with a number of people in Russia. This is right after the fall of the Soviet Union. And it were people who have been involved in security and intelligence. So the people that we met with were principally from the KGB, in KGB headquarters for the first time.
Wow, that's
And
cool.
again, people who've been involved in security, law enforcement and intelligence from the US. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's super interesting, and that kind of thing can happen without a sister state program, but this makes it easier, and you already have like relationships built and kind of your sister states. And all I want to say is, if you take a field trip for this, I would love to be able to go.
Fair, totally fair.
We'll have to figure out something where GovOps can coordinate,
Exactly, yeah, I mean, if you want GovOps to have a pass-through, just so we all could do a
Right.
field trip.
But you know, instead of being called the Sister State Committee, it should be referred to as the Joint Committee on Foreign Relations.
I don't know, that makes it sound less
I
fun.
tell you, I do have some hesitancy, because one of the things that's concerned me a lot in the past, and this may be fine, has been resolutions that come up on the floor that get the body involved in international issues on the basis of no information,
Yeah.
no background, no test, no nothing. And we find ourselves voting on
But this
things
is-
regarding supporting some movement or body.
Yeah.
Those have always concerned me.
Yeah, that's not what this is. This is
Right.
creating a structure for a relationship, and like I said, they already exist.
Very
This
strong
would create just a way to have a seam through line and after
Right.
when governors change, because they usually end when a governor leaves and their executive orders are.
Right,
So this would make it statutory and permanent and have framework that, so it's not just a random place that, oh, that sounds nice, let's do that one. This
Right.
would have a structure that say, how do we decide who we're gonna have a relationship with? And maybe quell some of those concerns, that it's not just the place of the day.
Right.
It's really much more of a structured relationship.
Well, a relationship is two ways. They have to want to.
Yes, and that's built into the bill already, that it's mutually beneficial and that they want to be involved as well. So,
we've all experienced the power, I think, of people-to-people relationships
Yeah.
cross-culturally.
exactly.
Sally,
We have
so
all
thank you
been
for bringing these back.
you're welcome,
We're
thank you
gonna
for
get into some
considering that.
issues with us.
I had two, I think Martine is next.
Yeah, well, I don't know, you could probably let her know, but
If I see her.
yes,
She may have gone and got to get a mask.
Oh, she is in my, I was like, what is her morning committee?
yeah. I was like, oh,
Thank you all. Take
thank
care.
you, thanks.
Yeah.
So we have a few different people we could hear from on both of those bills. Is there interest in pursuing those?
I think it's a great idea, actually. It would be
You're
great
talking
to,
Sister State.
yeah, just because of the background, we've had them, they've been very productive. I mean, I just know from the law school's point of view, how terrific the Karelian sister state, the Petroslavsk trips for John Dooley and a former Chief Justice, former Justice, Supreme Court Justice, and Oliver would go on these, and I think they went twice together. Very productive.
Going involves dollars. And
The state did not pay.
no, but that's,
Where those dollars come from is. a
yeah,
really
I mean,
important thing to
what
keep
does
track of.
this mean? What
Yeah.
are we? Yeah, I mean, what's the basis? This is the cause du jour. I don't know how Corelia got there. My daughter went and taught with Project Harmony and taught basket weaving
Mhm,
at a kid's camp
mhm.
in the mountains.
Sometimes consulates have money.
Yeah.
State Department.
I mean,
have
but
money.
it's
Yeah.
just, if we're gonna do it formally,
Mhm.
I think we need to know what's
Yeah.
involved in.
Hello, Senator Glick. I think we have discussion after these as well, so
Okay,
we can, yeah, of course, Senator Glick has like been in and out very patiently.
I realized that health and welfare had missing two people.
Yes,
so
yeah,
I felt
no,
like I should talk about it.
right, I think Alex was trying to do that in traffic control.
Yeah.
S46, the last of our bills to have introduced.
Yes, thank you so much for having me this morning. And I have to say that my son went on the Satori exchange.
Oh, wow.
And we had two students, Naka and Yuka, who stayed with us, and we're still in touch with them. And it was really a wonderful
We
experience.
had the ballet master from Petrosavos over Christmas and several dancers.
My gosh,
We had
okay.
2 separate sets. this
Sounds
year.
exciting.
And then my son went to Siberia for 6 months in college, coming out of this exchange program.
Well,
Wow.
humanizing each other is what, getting to know each other and realizing Russia isn't just Putin.
Exactly.
Russia is also all those.
I don't know if you'd want to send anybody to Tomsk, Siberia.
Senator Gillis,
So,
S46.
right to repair, yes. S46, I believe you've seen some version of this over the years. I think it's come around before. My interest in this bill just comes from my life experience living with someone who is completely dedicated to a circular economy. My partner, my husband, who does not like to buy anything new, he likes to repair, keep things going. We have a sewing machine from the 1940s that we still use, a waffle maker from the 1950s that we still use. And as you know, historically, it was much easier to keep things going with a screwdriver and a hammer and a little bit of ingenuity. It's much harder these days as everything is technological and requires all kinds of software and all kinds of, device management and so on and so forth. So this is something, when I started hearing about it a couple of years ago, I thought, this is really interesting. As consumers, we buy things, but we can no longer fix them. And one of the reasons why this is so interesting is the amount of e-waste that's created. As you know, we live in this disposable society. We buy things and we get rid of them. And at last count, according to Global E-Waste Monitor, the world generated 53.6 megatons of e-waste, and that was in 2019. And they're thinking that it'll be 74.7 megatons by 2030. So, right to repair will not completely eradicate that problem, but it would certainly help if folks could have the ability and the capacity to fix the stuff that they own. So another compelling piece of this legislation is that in this world where we have this missing middle, we have growing income inequality, I think it's critical to allow consumers to fix their own stuff once they buy it. You know that during the pandemic, it was really critical for hospitals to be able to fix their equipment. And it wasn't always easy because, things were locked down. We had supply chain issues. They couldn't always get to an authorized dealer or an authorized entity that could fix their equipment. So same thing with schools. As we know, during the pandemic in lockdown, students really relied on their devices for learning. So these were really high level examples of the need to be able to fix stuff. So basically, right to repair. I have to mention farmers. We live in an agricultural state and farmers have been clamoring for a long time to have the capacity to fix their own equipment. It's really, really important. And I know there's some history there and some headway has been made, but they don't have full license over their own equipment, and that's really, really important. So what this bill does, Right to Repair asks manufacturers to provide parts, embedded software, firmware, tools, or documentation such as diagnostic, maintenance, or repair manuals, diagrams to IRP independent repair providers and owners. So it gives some of the ability and some capacity to independent dealers, providers, and owners to fix their own stuff. Just a quick, some factoids that you might find interesting in terms of the landscape out there. In the last days of 2022, the New York Governor Kathy Hochul signed the Digital Fair Repair Act into law, calling the Empire State the first state in the nation to guarantee the right to repair. John Deere signed a memorandum of understanding with the American Farm Bureau Federation on January 8th to enhance the ability of farmers to timely control the lawful operation and upkeep of agriculture equipment. Samsung and Apple both recently expanded their self-repair programs to encompass more devices. Companies are sort of feeling the pressure. There's a momentum nationwide around right to repair, and they are acting because of the pressure. At least 14 states right now have introduced new bills. And I have to say that Colorado was the first state to pass a bill around the ability to repair wheelchairs. And just a few days ago, they passed a law. It's hot off the presses. The Consumer Right to Repair Agriculture Equipment Act. It passed the House on a 44-17 vote. So that's super exciting. The Federal Trade Commission released a report in May 2021 that found scant evidence to support manufacturers' justifications for repair restrictions. So there's a lot of fear mongering and not a lot of evidence that what some of the manufacturers are saying is actually true. And you know that the Biden administration charged federal agencies in an executive order to make it easier and cheaper to repair items you own by limiting manufacturers from barring self-repairs. So corporations present all kinds of reasons why we shouldn't be allowed to repair our own equipment. I'm not going to list them all here, but as I said before, there's scant evidence to back those claims. And I hope you will consider passing this groundbreaking legislation in Vermont that could have a huge impact, financial impact on consumers. It will decrease the vast quantities of e-waste ending up in our landfills, will lower the need for increased resource production, which is also a huge issue that I didn't go into here, and will keep our small businesses moving forward on their own timeline and in their own terms, on their own terms. Thank you.
Very well thought out bill introduction. Senator Cook, thank you. Any questions?
Question, and I just looked through, I didn't see anything related to liability. One of the issues that's been raised about repair is, let's say I have a wheelchair and I have somebody repair it who repairs it differently than the manufacturer would have repaired it, and then an injury occurs, who's responsible for that? Would that be something in terms of clarification to this bill that might be helpful?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, what's happening now is folks are repairing their own devices. They're going on YouTube and finding someone who's found a fix and they're fixing them. I think the hope would be to have, you know, some veracity behind the provider of the information. Actually, the liability issues would become fewer and less because you would have real materials as opposed to some guy on YouTube sort of making something up and putting it out there. But I think if you were to get more serious about this might be a question for our council around liability. That would be something that you would look at. But again, in my research, I just didn't find that was something that was coming up as, again, it's something that is brought up as, whoa, we need to be careful about this, but I haven't seen evidence that it's been a huge issue. So Senator Beck, yeah.
So I love this bill. We loved it. Where we spent a lot of time on this in the last, 6-7 years I've been on this committee. We've addressed it twice. Chris Pearson was the last great champion of this bill, and we came very close to passing it. And I just am not remembering what was the final barrier. Chris would remember. But, we are a state of use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. And I just think this absolutely fits in with the Vermont sensibility, and it's just enraging that we cannot get some of these things repaired. And I think we obviously would have to address all aspects of it, but I really encourage us to get this done this biennium.
Thank you. Yeah, I did send some resources to Scott, and I think he probably.
And would you send your testimony?
Absolutely.
Because it would be.
I'll post it on our.
I'm glad
Okay,
you
great.
said biennium, because
Yeah,
this is
I-
probably the only bill we've heard, opposition, people have reached out and
Mhm.
don't think we're gonna get it done in 2 weeks. But it is compelling.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad to know the history. I knew, it's been taken up before. I didn't know that so it never passed out. It got close to passing out of committee or.
Yeah, and I can't remember, it may have, I have to chat with Pearson.
Okay,
I'll
that'd
have
be
a
great.
catch up chat with Pearson.
Okay, so that'll be our next step.
I could be wrong too. I also think the bill in the past was limited to agricultural equipment, and this one is more general. Is that possible?
It may be, we definitely discussed agricultural equipment as it has gotten more and more complicated, and more electronic, and they are so frustrated at not being able to fix. So look, I'll double check with Pearson.
Yeah, and I mean, if and when you have more time to take this up, Chris Pearson might be able to come in and give testimony.
Right.
And there would be other folks who could also give testimony, but it is, like I said, it's gaining momentum across the country. It is critical. It's a consumer rights issue, and I think we should stick with it. And
Yeah, if New York did
Yeah.
something, usually we're like, okay, well, there goes the market, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hearing me, and yeah, Senator Brock, I didn't give you a great answer, but I will see what I can follow up on that with you. Yeah, thank you so much.
May I give an anecdotal, just a short one, which is our dishwasher was broken and Oliver was, well, let's get a new one. Let's get a new one. It's like, no, I bet a little dinky fix. After quite a bit of research, because our repair person had retired, I found a new chap who did a great, it was a tiny little nothing. It was a little gasket or something that had to be fixed, and it's perfect. But it was a tiny little piece. So it's just often we get cowed by the electronic aspect of these goods, and it's great when they can be fixed easily.
Exactly, I agree. Thank you for that anecdote. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Gully, and thank your committee assistant and your chair for all this.
Yeah, I
Sending
will.
you all out.
Thank you very much, Senator. I appreciate it.
Bye, good to see you.
all soon.
Go solve our health problems.
So committee, we just have 2 housekeeping things, and then I'm gonna let you go because we've just had such a intense few weeks on our housing bill. But before we do that, I'd like to just show everybody the bills we have in committee, so you can see what I left out and why. And then I wanted to hand out confirmations. There's probably 10 unless we got more. And so I was just hoping everyone could take 2. And have you heard about confirmations
People
yet?
confirmation.
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what, okay.
Yeah, I don't think we have any major ones yet. I think they're all boards, et cetera.
No judges, huh?
Judges.
No, but we're the
Do we
commissioner.
have contact
Specifically
information?
for everyone. Okay, great.
We might have one more.
Do we,
Okay, so
is there contact information with those?
Scott will get you those.
I don't know why the government, every year we have to ask,
Yeah.
I know. I know.
why don't you
It's always
just
a
send it
balance.
down?
Right, I know. Here are the packets, in case you want to peruse regardless.
Oh, this is so we,
You each have one. Yeah, no,
Do we have different people or is this?
no,
all
this
one?
is all
This
10,
is
it's
all-
10, right?
Okay, I know Joanne Troyano. Do I even have to call
Okay, so so
her? I'll do Joanne.
Senator Cummings is taking
I'll
Joanne.
take the one from Michelle Phillips from Georgia.
Okay,
And who's from Barry? I don't, yeah, I know who you are. All right, I'll do Bob Greenwald.
Oh, I love Bob Greenwood. It's wonderful. I remember.
I think I've
We'll
done
do
him
Linda
before.
Joy Sullivan.
great, okay. So Brock and Cummings are very efficient in their choices.
Is that a new appointment of Linda Joy to the Vermont State
Housing
Housing
Authority.
Authority?
Date
Yeah.
appointed Well, right, no, never
So I
mind.
think she probably would be.
Yeah. Um. Senator Harrison, I'm looking at someone from Bennington and
Sure, I'll call them.
Shrewsbury. Do that.
Right, and what we do is we call them and talk to them, right?
Yes, and Scott can try to help with contact information, but Senator Harris is right.
Why on earth would they want to serve in a position like this?
Right.
Okay, so
I know.
Senator
Plumbers,
Harrison,
I'm going to, no, we want plumbers. I will be
Absolutely.
very- Yes.
Harrison, you're doing Goodrich and Thomas, if that's okay.
Yes, 2 plumbers.
Yeah.
And I could do Karen Sodder. That'll break up your 2, but
So Anne is Karen Soda.
Oh, you're doing 3, Anne?
well, yeah, I've got 3 from Montpelier.
Oh, great, okay. Thank
And
you.
I'm, as chair, not doing any of my other,
Oh, well, okay, I didn't know I could.
except
Delegate.
commissioners, which honestly, I have to get.
So we called Greenie, didn't we? He was great. So you've taken on Karen, Bob, and Joanne. Okay, and Randy, you're taking on Michelle Phelps.
And Linda Joy Sullivan.
I'm happy to do Benjamin O'Brien. I've known him for a long time. Firefighter.
Okay, RM, and that leaves,
That leaves Roger Donegan and Tom Nesbitt.
and where's Tom Nesbitt?
He's in the middle of the plumbers.
Waterbury Center.
And you're taking the Shrewsbury guy?
I am, yes.
So Allison, you'll do Roger and Tom.
I guess.
Okay,
And if they get us contact information,
I think it's in the packet. Is that in the packet?
no.
it's not in the back.
Oh,
These are
because
just the
Every
letters.
year we get slowed down because we have to ask the governor's office, please
Right.
send an email or phone number.
In the governor's office, I've already reached out to, basically said, we got what we got. So I will do my best to.
You're appointing someone and you don't have contact
I don't know
information.
how to get this.
I will
Yeah,
do my
They,
best to,
they have it.
I
They
know,
have
right?
it, they send
Randy
it
works on
down
this. for us.
every time we ask for it.
So Wendy, you're doing the Goodrich chap, the plumber?
Well, tell me
Yes,
after we
Goodrich
can't
and,
confirm it, 'cause
Thomas.
we can't reach them.
What do you, oh, yeah, I got it. Okay, great.
I've done, but.
And
Do we look at the board
by
responsibilities or anything?
Friday the 17th.
I don't want to do crossover, like by the end of March, March 31st.
It would be great to get them done sooner rather than later is all.
Maybe the week of budget crossover.
Yeah,
Would be a little
the
lighter.
following week
So
after the 17th.
March 24th, if people could do this by March 24th.
That's our deadline.
Yeah, and none of these are going to require anyone to get up and say anything on the floor.
These are just,
They
internal
exist.
conversation. We have to agree
Right.
among ourselves to,
Well,
Okay.
be sure there aren't any controversies.
there is
Okay.
one.
I mean, has there been, any discrimination in the Montpelier Housing Authority?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Okay, I was
Oh,
gonna pass.
yes, that one, I knew there was some issue, I just couldn't remember what it was.
Yep, I think that's an issue.
Here are all
What
the
was it?
bills we've gotten.
There's an issue regarding
A Montpelier Housing Authority?
No.
Okay.
Okay, there you
I'm
go.
State Housing Authority. I've not heard any issues. It's not,
No, that's what I said, these normally, all of them go without.
yeah.
But
So
then when the question was raised.
So this is our wall.
this is our wall. Yeah, we don't have a wall in here for stylistic. I don't know. I don't know
That's
when
all
it
right.
disappeared.
I'm just-
Yeah, this is our wall.
Okay.
So card check elections is folded into one of the labor bills we heard yesterday.
We did?
Yeah, so the first
Oh,
part,
I took out to do a phone call that I'm missing.
I don't
Because I'm
know.
getting a lot of emails on that.
Oh, okay, good to
Yeah,
know.
please tell them to stop sending them to me from Burlington.
Is that like like they're supportive?
Between that and the S5 people, I'm
Mhm.
getting hundreds of emails a day, none of whom are from my constituents.
I think I can pass that on to the AFL-CIO.
I
about
think
the card
that
check.
this is protect our right to bargain or,
Okay, Okay,
Yeah, whoever it is.
we've gotten the message. Okay.
No, I haven't gotten the message from
No, I
Mike.
mean, like-
I've got the message from Cabrini.
She is saying they are ill targeted. They are
Yes.
poorly
So wait,
targeted.
you, it's been heard.
They are not as bad as the S5.
But they threaten to move into your district if you don't vote the way they want you to.
True.
Oh, do they really? Okay.
They find a house.
So that is folded into another bill.
Now we know.
Which should have numbers today. All of our labor, what you don't see here, are all
Oh,
the
you
bills we
did
talked about
one
yesterday.
whole bill, okay.
Yeah, well, it's.
Well,
in
a couple,
the
we have a
program.
couple labor
Yeah.
bills that I'm not
Um,
sure they can all be folded into one. Are you thinking they're all gonna be folded into one?
I wasn't thinking that,
I
yeah,
didn't think so.
yeah, I tried to separate them by larger category, but we shall see, we shall see. We just heard S19, are there any strong objections to hearing a little bit more testimony?
Oh, not to doing more testimony. I think why have a law if there's no consequences for violating the law?
It's a good question.
And
If,
Offer to come in, or you want her written answers to some of those questions?
No, she should come in.
I think let's hear from her
Continue
before
our
we decide.
Vice update with her also.
I'd like to hear from child psycho. I mean, my kids went to school when there were no negative consequences. You just had to write a plan for how you would correct it. And my position is, it's good to learn there's negative consequences when your mother says no and you put your finger on the hot stove. If you don't learn that there are negative consequences, at some point, the potential for learning it a really hard way. And to say it's illegal for you to buy something because it could kill you. And then we say, but if you do it, we'll just punish the guy that sold it to you. You're fine there. That's a mixed message, and I don't think it's a good message.
Well, I think after we hear from the commissioner and decide truly, is this, what's happening right now? I know we could find someone like that and, the youth prevention specialists, the people embedded in our districts and communities who try to help young people prevent or cessate their tobacco use might also want to talk about this issue as well, so we can, if we decide to.
yeah, I'd really like to hear from
I would like
experts
to
on
hear-
how
but
this
I would also
influences.
like to
But-
hear from somebody that deals in child development,
Sure.
not in tobacco prevention.
Okay,
That's a pretty closed,
right. Well, I thought we'd hear from the commissioner first and then decide.
is the commissioner supporting this?
I don't think, it came through the American Heart Association. So I don't know what the commissioner's position is at all.
No, I know.
I think she could just give us the facts on the ground and then we could decide.
Which commissioner?
DLL, they do tobacco, enforcement.
Yeah, I
Not
just
more
have
than five.
comments, but I'll save them.
You can
Yeah.
share them now.
Well, it's just, I think it's critical to keep kids off of tobacco. It's super,
Mhm.
super important. There are other opportunities for reinforcement. I totally agree with you. But sometimes we put too much on kids in terms of protecting themselves.
Mhm.
And I think adults need to be held accountable, and specifically the corporations need to be held accountable. So when I first saw this, I thought, I was
Mhm.
kind of shocked, but the more I learn about it, I mean, there could be other negative consequences
As
that
long
aren't
as you
law
make the
enforcement.
person selling also have to be 21.
That's
Because
an
there
idea.
are a bunch between alcohol and tobacco.
Yeah,
There are a lot of, when you're a 14-year-old clerk and you look at a 17-year-old guy with a full beard that's 6'3", you make a judgment call.
that can be intimidating.
We can
Yeah.
also ask the commissioner about who's legally allowed to sell some of those products,
Yes.
because I do think there's some prohibitions there
Yes.
as well.
You discussed this bill this morning.
Yeah, we just got an intro from Senator Lyons, yeah.
What is BIDIS?
Oh, BDs, I think they are called.
What is that?
I think it's,
They're like little mini.
they,
I've
they might be
never
the
heard of
vaping.
it.
Electronic
I-
version.
They're not defined.
Oh,
what's
B,
here.
oh, wait,
Okay,
I
I was
think
gonna
they're
say,
the
I-
BIS.
I spent the last 6 years in health and welfare and I never heard of those.
Okay, We'll have to.
EIDI. I sometimes I just Google thing. Look at this. No, it is. I was right because it's kind of an Indian origin. It's a mini cigar
Oh, God, not more mini
filled with
cigars.
tobacco flakes. Originates from the Indian subcontinent. That's my understanding of what those are, but I could be biased.
So do we tax?
So we
them?
might need to use another word or.
No,
I
little,
know, as I
explain
said,
it.
it's just-
No, I think that's what they are, is little rolled, little rolled tobacco flakes.
little cigars have been paid of
We call them
the liquor tax, of the taxes on tobacco.
Right,
Because we have redone that law, because every time we do something, they kind of migrate to something else.
Sure.
So this must, I'll have to make sure we're taxing biddies.
okay.
Little old biddies.
I'm also after clove cigarettes.
Okay, so I think if this is ultimately too controversial, it's certainly not going anywhere in 2 weeks. But we can have at least the commissioner and see, so get some data and then move on to if there's at least a majority of interest in trying.
Is there something in the house? On this?
I believe so, but actually, I can't say for sure. S20, I just haven't sort of figured out if I didn't have the capacity to introduce this bill to the committee right after the housing bill, but this was requested by some of the chamber folks. It's come up before, but
This came up this summer, and joint fiscal said that they were not the appropriate place
right.
to deal with it.
Yeah, and I don't think it does task them. It brings a group together to look at the cliffs and how the basic needs budget kind of interacts with real life.
Well, is this I feel like this is the bill that Ellen Taylor, is there a house equivalent of this? Because I have a funny feeling there's work being done on this that's coming to us from the house, so let's check on
Yeah,
that.
Okay,
they were,
great.
they
I
were
think Ellen
so,
Taylor is involved with this.
Okay.
yeah,
Let
Do
me,
you
let's
wanna
find,
email?
I will
Okay,
find out.
Thank you. We just heard about the next 4. Were there any, I already said with S46, it's not gonna happen in 2 weeks. So we might wait for like a lull in our schedule after.
But I would love to
Yes.
do this, I love this bill.
Okay,
And,
I'm glad, yeah,
I'm gonna
Noted.
channel my
Yeah.
father.
okay.
I'm
Great.
channeling my father on this one.
But yeah, if you want to think of people to testify after crossover when we have
Yeah.
a lull in this, Pearson might be available on short notice.
I like this one too.
Okay, great. I'm not saying the other 3 we can do before, but we did specifically with genetic information.
That's a.
It doesn't have a lot of opposition.
No, and I think it's a
Yeah.
good bill to get over and they can
Okay.
do more work on it.
Right.
I think some of this is just getting it to the house to keep the work, the efforts going.
Yeah.
I am not I think the sister state, I mean,
Mhm.
I am in a family that benefited from the sister state experience. So
Right.
I think it needs criteria, is to go to Ann's
to
point.
me, it's not essential.
It's not
a
essential.
nice thing.
Mhm.
It's something you do when you have some time.
Right. I think
But-
it was compelling to hear that Japan is very interested in formalizing and something's coming up. So maybe we'll hear from, and Japan really does want to talk to us, so, or send us something so we can.
So we'll
start.
at least talk about it.
Yeah,
This isn't our best
But
day,
it's not
Peter.
something I'm gonna stay till midnight.
right, absolutely. And it, even if this one doesn't make
There are
crossover,
better
maybe
days.
that's enough
Yeah.
as a signal.
What is this, a thing on masks? Because COVID hits the Senate, is that?
It could be, but Herschel was also doing something on the housing bill, so I don't know.
My guess is it's on the senators who are dropping like flies.
Oh, like a
Yeah.
quick, okay.
Who knows?
Absolutely. Okay,
I have my aspirational bill I put out a lot of years about the climate court. For me, it relates more to if the federal government could get its act together to fund climate cores around the
Oh,
country.
wouldn't that be nice?
So I don't feel, and we're looking at climate workforce in relationship to the larger
well,
workforce
why
development.
would the Youth Conservation Corps be the place to do that.
They were part of the group
Yeah.
that convened to talk about this. They would probably be potentially ones to house it. We brought Serve Vermont, Conservation Corps and others together. There are some states that are building on top of that with place-based programs that help you, learn how to.
We have this with our youth conservation corps.
No, that's what I'm
In
saying.
large
They-
measure. I mean,
yeah.
this exists and.
It was kind of like, if there's federal money, how do we make sure we're matching their requirements? And my interest had always been that it would be nice if you had people embedded in their own community who could get paid, rather than, oh, you've like brought a college student out somewhere, but can you pay someone in a mobile home community to repair?
Well, that's what we
You
do in Vista now.
Right.
When I was in Vista, I had to be at least 200 miles from home.
Mm,
Now you just hire local people
yeah,
and with a subsidized job.
Mhm.
It's become what the job's for.
right.
I would like to see the right to repair bill applied to government, and particularly to legislation. We keep passing bill after bill after bill every year.
But
In
that's not a bad thing. That's our
1947,
job.
there was one volume of Vermont statutes, and now there are 33 plus appendices, and we're adding more and more climate cores and so on. How about repairing what we got in
Well,
terms
that's
of
what this bill
organizational
is about.
structure?
You can
Repairing what we've done,
amend this bill. if
I love
you
that
would
bill.
like.
repairing what
I
we
mean, it
have.
just
They
never
took
ends.
out all the liquor stuff.
But that's
They
your
could change
job,
it.
that's our job.
Well, our job is to pass good legislation.
Exactly.
And also to
This is
make
good
it, if
legislation.
you look at what Constitution, Vermont Constitution says, the things that make sense, and that among other things are frugal, and we're just adding.
I know, and you know what, the common good, you and I did discuss Article 9, you discussed 16. This is a common good thing, to be able to repair the things you own is
Well,
a fundamental Vermont value.
I absolutely agree with that.
Right.
That's why as Penn, I bought in 1980 and I keep
Exactly,
fixing it.
and you haven't lost it. The biggest challenge with that pen is
I
you
know.
losing it.
Mhm.
There's-
I will say, I think our housing bill is very reparative. It takes some things out of the way that we didn't intend to
Let's see what's left.
do.
Um,
And I'm going to speak to it.
My father gave up on
Oh, that's-
toasters. He
that's
finally
right.
decided that
Well,
toasters
no, I
were the
just-
one
I don't
thing
want
that
to
was
sit
cheaper
the
to
liquor
replace than fix. He spent many hours
Yeah.
having prayer meetings, as he called them, over the toaster, which Betty swore.
I wish I had.
That's
I love it.
Plumbing was another thing he had trouble with. But we repaired
Okay, so
all
paid family medical leave, we're likely to get a bill after crossover
We are
from the house.
definitely gonna get a bill from.
So we don't need to do it.
No.
No,
Oh,
It
okay, I was
was-
gonna
so-
say,
and let me-
that's still on there, or
it was, originally there was the intention to have it in both places, not knowing what.
okay, my problem with that is I'm getting childcare, I believe,
Yes.
and paid family leave. But if I commit all the resources
Right.
I can find to childcare, there's nothing left for paid family leave, which is one of the problems
That
of
is
having them ride separately.
right. It's certainly above our pay grade in here, but the money committees and leadership will
No
ultimately,
one asked,
well,
but that,
No
I
one
mean,
asked
that's one of the problems. I don't know what, I know they're working on getting childcare down to a more
Right.
staged, realistic
right,
thing,
yeah.
but
All we know is they'll get childcare when we get paid family leave, and something has to happen.
and that maybe they'll
Involving a
all
higher
get
power.
conference together.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
But we'll just look, we'll
it's
be
how
looking
much
at.
money we
Right.
can realistically.
Yeah, and it's probably very good for 3 people on this committee to have a sense of the cost of each component of family leave, because each policy decision you make has a specific price tag to it. So cannabis is gonna come out, we're gonna do after crossover. We're still anticipating that House Gov Ops is taking the lead on more of a technical look at cannabis. There are big questions like delivery and social consumption that we may not address in maybe a 2-year process. But there are some technical things. For example, once we created recreational, we kind of neglected medical, and we need to figure out what.
Well, we've got
Medical
two
looks like.
separate. Yeah,
Yeah.
all the restrictions around medical now may not be necessary because it's not illegal
Right.
anymore.
Right.
So,
Um,
yeah, I don't know that we want to let folks that grow marijuana tell you what the medical uses are.
Right. So we are taking up S73. It looks like Scott's working on some of the witnesses we mentioned. I talked to Representative Scott Beck, who was very glad to have a few minutes to come in here and talk about his change that allows someone to get screened later and still be eligible.
And so taking up means doing before crossover or after crossover?
We'll see so I'm circling things that we're attempting to get through crossover.
Okay.
They're not working, the House doesn't have a bill in action on this, do they?
Representative Beck didn't sound like that was the
I don't think
case.
they do.
Okay, so we need to do this.
He's introduced it, yeah, and, you know, other chairs or people who've been around here can chime in, but some things might not make crossover and still might be simple enough for the House to take up. It's just, there's no guarantee that, you know, you've made it to the other side and it meets the full sort of good faith effort to get it through the other body. But they could get it and say, oh yeah, let's pass this.
I mean, the House for years, Opie and I almost came to blows on more than one occasion. I would send all my bills by crossover and he wouldn't get to them, but they would send bills well into the middle of April. And trying to enforce crossover.
Right. It's a guideline.
It's a guide.
Okay,
It doesn't mean it can't happen.
Okay.
If
Right.
they want it to happen, it will happen. And no matter when you send it, if they don't want it to happen, it won't. And it
Right.
works both ways.
And sometimes you can send an emissary over and say, this is a really little bill, we really like it, can you find time for it? Well, big day, you know.
And then, or, I mean, one of them is charter changes. I mean, we are charter change, you know, because they're
Yeah.
the last on everyone's list.
Yeah,
And they're always,
and they have to start in the House generally,
Yeah.
so they come over to us.
and they have to
Yeah.
be done or the towns have voted and they get really upset. Don't
See that.
The cider change that Tucker previewed is in a little alcohol bill that should be coming to us around crossover.
Oh, okay. As an S bill?
No, it's a House bill, House Gov Ops.
Okay.
It was the one where you specify what hard cider is and label it as such, so there's no confusion. That's the S86, do you see that? So any
So
questions?
I am right that when I said that there was discussion about S20 being done in the House,
Good.
Ellen and I are just going back and forth. It was presented in House General on Wednesday, and so the question is, are they taking it up?
A lot of questions.
And so I will find out
Thank you,
the
yeah.
answer to that. But if not, I'm also asking about the urgency of it and whether we
Yes.
can do it after crossover and have it a biennium bill, or if we get that work done and it figures in the days of the end, we
Mhm.
have something that is that we've done some work on.
Thank you for finding that out. We are definitely still trying to sort out what we're getting from the House. GovOps is definitely sending us vice issues that you heard about yesterday. I mean, I say definitely, but sports betting could get derailed. We don't know for sure, but it is moving and I hear a lot of conversation about it. Your vice chair and I will find out what House General is doing.
Yeah.
Honestly, don't know what is coming to us from them.
Well, I have, yeah.
Commerce, do you want to report anything, Senator Clarkson, on what Commerce is?
No, Stefan and their plan is for them to do the work, get at least the first draft of the workforce bill out before crossover. So we're gonna be working on that, and I'm happy to help them as much as possible because Stephanie's been out. So
And they're
and
sending us
they're-
the workers' comp rate, so we'll attach our.
And they're doing the workers' comp rate, and sending it over to us before by crossover.
Mhm. So that, I think we previewed this yesterday, we don't have bill numbers, but our UI workers' comp bill will fold into that after crossover, the other labor bills we'll keep looking at.
And VEPSI, the VEPSI discussion is robust and very tough. in
And the
that.
veggie particular initiative, yeah.
But the VEPSI reauthorization and the veggie simplification are in the same
We're gonna
bill.
get that.
It looks like that's gonna be a very tough, that's gonna be a challenging conversation, because they are really they are landing on VEPSI hard. in the
You're
House.
planning on. I'm sorry.
They're landing on VEPSI hard in the House. And so I think it's going to be a big issue for us to discuss. But something is coming to us.
And they are working on data privacy much larger than this genetic bill.
They're working on the AG's article.
Right.
They're working on the AG's version of data privacy.
And I don't know that that's gonna be crossover. We have confirmation.
You know what? We didn't talk about it yesterday.
Yeah.
So I can email them and find out.
And then I'm not anticipating anything from environment and energy, but I'm anticipating they're getting at least half of our housing bill, and we'll be in conversation with them.
Are there any broadband bills? And if there were, would we get them?
No.
No and no?
Well, the
Okay.
regulation, they're gonna finance.
Okay.
Is there a broadband bill?
Haven't seen one.
They're letting what we did a huge amount
Right.
last.
I know, and I'm
So-
really happy with
So I
that.
think, Christine, if you have questions,
Not at all.
Hallquist, I would
No,
email.
I don't want to mess things up.
No,
I-
Christine
that's
Hallquist,
kinda
but
where we're all at.
an update would be great, and maybe you're getting an
We've
update.
had
An
updates.
update, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Is
so
there- The
what's
only
the
thing we've
update?
asked is, is there anything else that you need in terms of further implementing legislation? I haven't heard anything.
No, I haven't either. I mean, we set up the system, we put the money in it, it just takes a long time to survey every pole and then get all the wires moved and then get the labor and material to get the stuff up.
Oh, yeah, no, it's happening in my district.
Yeah.
And it's good.
Yeah.
We started
Yeah.
taking testimony on how to make programs to make it more affordable, but we haven't. I think because Mr. Whitaker got in there,
It's going to be very affordable in my district.
he
so.
just makes it, we don't want to take up anything. I'm hesitating confirming the commissioner. Because he'll be there. He yelled at me last time because I didn't give him as much time as I gave her. I said, she's the commissioner. Okay.
Maybe Senator Cummings knows what she's saying.
No.
I do want to flag, I haven't asked for much around the childcare bill, knowing that three of us are going to see it in finance. But I think in finance, we'll want to make sure that they've addressed some of any business concerns around, if you're already providing childcare, if you'd like to be incenting childcare in some way. I just want to flag that, make sure we follow that conversation.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's even surveyed how many employers are doing what.
Right.
And if those employers would really want to continue. Places like National Life have just turned it over, the hospital closed theirs.
We certainly heard there's just a few cases where they are offering
Already, and yeah.
childcare, and that it,
But that gets, when you say, well, you have a tax, I suppose we could say it could be a rebate if we do a payroll tax.
Yes.
you offer on-site childcare.
Kind of like we do with out-of-state income.
That
Yeah.
sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
The other bill we haven't talked about is the minimum wage bill, which we talked about as a group, but
Oh, yeah, just they should all get numbers today, maybe, actually, we didn't hear for sure, but those bills were, that's 4 more on the list. that we're gonna keep moving forward with. And one, we're definitely waiting for crossover, which is UI and workers' comp. And the other ones, we'll see how far we get. And maybe, you know,
UI.
yeah.
Workers' comp is,
because we're getting a workers' comp bill from the House.
okay, okay.
And with the others, we may take pieces of all of them we think we can move and move them and put the rest aside for a 2-year process. But we have, you know, next week we have AFL-CIO and the building trades and others coming in to talk about some of them. And we have general contractors who want to talk about their concerns about some of them. So we're already just going to take up pros and cons of the labor bills and try to get what we can across the finish line. Anything else?
I think that's good. Schedule for next week. Just as I look at these workforce meetings, and the other meetings we're doing in and around this stuff, are we starting at 9 or 8:30 next week?
This week was the housing bill, and then just Senator Lyons couldn't do 9 or.
No, but I mean, for
Yeah.
next week, are you thinking uniformly we're starting at 9 on
There was nobody who.
No,
Yeah.
after the 4 on Tuesday, so.
Right.
Okay,
10,
that's good.
otherwise, 9.
Okay.
I think the next time we might look at 8:30 is the week of, you know, is if we need after town meeting to get something done more quickly, or, you know, but next week is pretty standard, 9 a.m.
Except for Tuesday.
Except Tuesdays after the 4th. We did good work this week. People deserve a break. I hope everyone stays healthy.
Yeah.
It was a nice weekend. At least this committee so far is not that good. I'm not even gonna say it out loud, but
That's a good idea.
nobody. Well, still.
And do you need anything for your support of the housing bill? Or if you do?
You mean you're going
Moral
to send an actual now?
Oh, in a half an hour.
Right, but I mean, are you asking?
Yeah, just if.
So I think it's important for us to distill it in manageable
Oh.
ways to explain to
Oh.
our caucus,
Um,
to our caucus.
Right, and that's my job.
Yeah. All the, what
I
I'm
mean, I'm not
So
the only one.
I, that's a really good reminder, because
Lay language.
my purpose is, I was like, Ellen, if it's humanly possible to update some
The
of those
summary.
summaries and things, and she did, I think, because she
Oh.
needs to go to other, so I forgot, she sent it last night, or yesterday evening, and I'm
Good.
printing it now,
Okay.
and I'll forward the email.
Good.
And I can also forward the email.
Can we email it to us too as well?
Yes, yeah.
Print it. I'd love a printout.
Thank you for.
And Josh Hannaford wanted this spreadsheet, so I'm gonna send that to him.
But we should fill it out first. So-
Well, he's gonna finish filling it out.
Well, that would be.
But I was, I sent it to you a while ago.
Oh,
It's supposed to,
Oh, like how many units of housing?
yeah, just to
I think that's great.
project the impacts of.
And I
of
will
the
say,
bill.
you know, I've talked to both chairs of appropriations who are very glad to get our thinking, our wish list, our
Even if it's big.
aspirations. It's good for them to know our larger universe as they start to narrow down what's possible. But I told them we were working on it. How many units of housing do we think we could create, and what's the trade-off, and how many units of rental versus homeowner? And so
Right,
JFO would probably be willing to continue to help with that, or
Oh, cool.
the commissioner.
okay. Can I actually,
Actually, I mean, the housing community needs to tell you, know, JFO won't know that.
right, right. I have
They
some
could-
questions
yeah.
about the implementation, like if certain things go through, that the enhanced designation, that's a whole process.
Mhm.
So it would be helpful to know how long they think that process would take, because it's the NRB who will determine that
Mhm.
process.
Yeah,
So that would be good to know. And then as the bill goes through, I'm wondering if it would be helpful, and you probably know this, what our priorities are. So if folks start saying, oh, we don't like this section, you know, there's 4 sections we don't like. If we could say, we think this one would have a bigger impact than the others.
right.
So have some priority.
Priority housing, which they have a
Yeah.
lot of familiarity, that is a huge impact.
Yeah, so,
But I was
No,
thinking
no,
priority of
I-
our
You
new,
haven't,
like,
there's a stage in the process that you haven't experienced yet, so a lot of informal
most
conversations happen.
stages.
A lot of informal conversations happen as the next committee of jurisdiction is taking it up and thinking about, you know, what the impacts are from their jurisdictional perspective. And they ultimately have the power to offer an amendment to our bill, and we vote on that amendment.
Okay.
So we probably spend a day getting their work back and digesting it to see if we agree with what they've done.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I should have remembered that, because that was part of the orientation, actually.
Oh,
that
I
we
mean,
did.
whatever,
Okay,
you
right,
know,
so it's
that's-
not gonna change unless we see that it changes,
Well,
or,
it's a very,
Scott.
it's a very delicate iterative process
okay,
of whether or not we accept their amendment, and the hope is that we do, because we've had a lot of conversation
okay,
about what we're getting.
okay,
Um,
thank you, that's helpful.
But, you know, others have seen things get a little hairier. I'm sure. We just hope that that doesn't happen.
I just gotta go and we're now excused pushing your chairs.
Do you want the printouts of the?
Yes,
things?
I do, but I
Okay.
can get that. you know.
Okay, so, yeah, we're, we can go off live whenever Scott's just printing those. It's a summary document and an Act 250 and zoning. Here